D, you can relate to that, right?
That's why I do this.
Hey, we're here with Long Talks today. We're going to talk a little bit about our the Last Dance, the final 2 episodes, and we're hoping to just go over that. And then Dan's got something he wants to bring up at the end here, so hopefully he'll remember what that is, and he won't forget between now and when we're done, because old age will get you. Who wants to start with just like their thoughts of 9 and 10? Derek, you want to go ahead and give us a start?
Yeah. Man, there were some more things that it was cool because every episode, as big as a Jordan fan as I was, and then a Bulls fan, there were things that I learned from each episode that I didn't know. And maybe I heard them then, but didn't just realize it, which I'll get to that here in a little bit. But again, every episode I was just amazed with a few things. But man, the thing that jumped out at me the most was they should have got an opportunity to go for number 7. I don't know if they would have been able to do it. I don't know if Pippen would have been able to come back, but hearing MJ talk about it last night, he thinks he possibly could have talked him back into it. I don't know, but that was just that whole thing from the get-go with shady how it started and shady how it ended too.
No doubt. Dan, what about you?
One of the most amazing things to me was Steve Kerr. Listening to Steve Kerr's story. So, Steve Kerr and I are not politically at all the same. And it made me sit back and think, wow, how life experience shapes everything for you. I mean, now I realize why he is such a vocal person about politics. I mean, dear Lord, his pops died serving in the Reagan administration. I mean, that was and him and Michael never talked about it. Never, ever, ever, ever had a conversation about it.
Did you guys know that story?
No. I had no idea. I didn't. I had no idea. I had never heard that.
Ever. And it was just, I mean, it was interesting how, we've all had tragedies, sitting here. But, I mean, just how he just dove into basketball. I mean, that was his coping mechanism for that. I mean, it out of both episodes, that was the thing that I thought, holy cow, that stuck with me. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. So I had to look to see who won the 99 title. And that was when the Spurs started,
wasn't it?
Yeah, started their run. If they think Malone was a matchup nightmare, can you imagine Duncan and Robinson as a matchup nightmare for them?
Wow.
Holy cow. And I'm thinking that predates Bruce Bowen, right, Keith? Do you guys remember?
I would think so, but I know that was I don't know. I just know that was Kerr's 4th championship because Kerr won 4 in a row because he went to the Spurs then.
Right.
And they won. So Steve Kerr won 4 in a row there, but yeah.
They didn't have Tony and they didn't have Manu yet. Manu, sorry. But I was wondering was that Sean Elliott? Was Sean Elliott on one of those teams?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. He would have had to have been, right?
Probably.
I mean, he was a champ. I mean, so he would have had to have been.
Okay. So those were, I mean, that was just a little bit. How about you? What really stuck out to you, Keith?
The breaking up of the team, which, I mean, but I looked at that a totally different way now than I ever did before, simply because I thought, there's egos in the front office and there's egos with players and management. But I think the stress of it all, I mean, I think people underestimate that stress, where I think people just think it's about, the players go out there and they do all the work. But even being a Cavs fan and seeing LeBron in Cleveland, and you hear about Dan Gilbert in the front office and the things they had to go through. And, I know you want to win as an organization, but I think sometimes that stress is just more than people realize. And then it's the money. I mean, everybody always loves to spend somebody else's money, but Reinsdorf was right. Those guys were going to want to get paid. I mean, even if Jordan is like, yeah, I was going to play for a year, but he was going to get $30-some million plus for that year. And then there was no way Scotty was going to sign for a year. Pippen wanted to be signed long term. And then you're going to have to pay Phil big money too to come back. So, I mean, you were going to pay a lot of money. And so I just think they were kind of like, well, okay, this is it. And, we'll go from there. But besides the breaking up of the team, I get back to this later, but I'm not sure where I stand on Scottie Pippen, and I just don't know. And it's flip-flop back and forth, but I can talk about that later. The Rodman stuff is fantastic. I remember that because I remember Chas and I used to watch WCW wrestling all the time. I remember Chas had like a Wolfpack t-shirt with the NWO, and I remember like that stuff going on, and you're like, wow. That dude really did leave. Like he was like, I'm out.
The next day.
Oh yeah. It's like, I'm out.
Like I had no clue. Like I vaguely remember him like getting in NWO and all that stuff. And I didn't realize when it happened though. Like, holy crap. It's amazing.
Jumped on a jet. And that's what the one guy I read on Twitter today, I forget what teammate it was, but somebody said, they paid him $250,000 to get on that jet and to go to the WCW for that night. And he got fined $20,000. And they were like, he's a smart businessman because he still came out $230,000 ahead of, I'm like, yeah. But, I can't imagine anything like that happening today. Like, I can't imagine anybody just going, you know what?
Right.
I'm out. I'm going to wrestling because, I just want to go.
You know what it made me think of was like, on a very, very, very dumbed down schedule or example would be like we all coach and we've all had guys just not show up to practice. And we're like, think about how upset you get then. And they're just at home. You know what I mean? Like this dude didn't just skip practice. He went and wrestled. I mean, like,
yeah, it's unbelievable. But he was out. He was just like, I'm out. But even when he came back though, that was pretty telling too. Was he came back and that next practice they had, and he showed up. It wasn't like they were yelling and screaming at him or anything. No. They were just like, "Oh, Rodzilla, blah blah blah." I'm like, because that's just who he is. I don't know. It's just, that just doesn't happen. I don't know.
Keith, it just popped in my head. The other thing that really, and I guess it hit more home to me than it would to you two right now, was how when Jordan's dad passed away, how the security guy
became kind of his father,
like his dad. And like I think about that, like how I am with my father-in-law. Like when my dad passed away, like my father-in-law truly is like my father. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't love anybody like you love your dad, obviously, but like I love Gary. Like he's like my second dad, I mean, like that was super cool to watch that relationship.
And Rachel Nichols or somebody tweeted out that Jordan paid for like all of his medical expenses and all that stuff, like all of his cancer treatments and everything, and I'm like, well, you could see that because you could see how much that guy meant to him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was easy to see how much he meant to him, but yeah, that was amazing how you just kind of that surrogate role, how that guy just kind of filled in. And he was even saying, I wanted advice from older guys from, you look at those guys he was hanging around with. That was not the crew you would think Michael Jordan was hanging out with at the prime of his career,
But you know what? Like, look at his relationship with his teammates. They're not going to want to hang out with him. You know what I mean? Like, I think we learned through all these episodes why he was that way, but I could see his circle not being real big, and
no doubt.
Those older guys might be the ones that he knows that he can trust, and he doesn't have to build trust like he did with Steve Kerr, what I mean?
Yeah, it was really telling just to see him hanging out with the crew that he hung out with. And like you said, I didn't even think about that with his teammates, but you're right. I mean, it was almost like he was off in his own world.
Yeah.
Like he had his own world, and then the rest of that team, they had their world, and it'd be interesting to see like how the rest of those guys even hung out. Like, did anybody hang out with Pippen? Did anybody hang out with, you figure probably nobody hung out with Rodman because they wouldn't have made it through the night or whatever. But, I don't know. It was different. It's not what you would think of when you think about a team.
You know, that makes me wonder. I didn't think about this till right now, but like you just wonder how many superstars who are by far the best player on their team. You just wonder how many of them are like that. Because like my one buddy, Andreas, his brother who played at Michigan State, he was there with Mateen Cleaves. And that's how Mateen was. Mateen was just like, everybody always said he never, ever hangs out with us. He just does his own thing. He'll show up to play, obviously,
right,
and ball out. But he was, it was similar to that. And you wonder if that's a common theme with studs,
You got to think it is with LeBron. I mean, you got to think LeBron's like that. LeBron's got the same guys around him that since he's been like, 10?
Yeah, he does. He has his crew, there's no doubt. But he also has done like, you'll see those things he's done where like, hey, we're going to Napa Valley and we're doing wine tasting, or hey, we're having bowling night. So those are like little things that to me are like so different, where like they'll do those things together, or they have done those things.
Yeah.
Where I don't know for sure, but I think we can pretty much put money on it and think that there's no way the Bulls were hanging out like that with Jordan. that just wasn't the way it was working. That wasn't how it was happening. So
okay, I got some other random notes here.
I was gonna say, hey, can I get mine? Because mine you got I don't have mine written down. Number one, Carmen Electra still looks amazing. Like that, like her little cameo, like I rewound it 3 times. I'm like, holy cow, you're still drop dead gorgeous. That's all I got.
I mean, if you're into that,
what's that?
If you're into that type of look,
Okay.
Okay. The pizza thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Did he get poisoned?
Isn't that basically what they're saying? It was like food poisoning, right?
So I don't know if you've been watching after each episode, Scott Van Pelt has his like show afterwards. Have you been watching any of those?
I did not last night.
Okay. So the guy who produced all these, he's a younger guy. He told this story that wasn't on there, that when they got that pizza, Jordan was like, none of y'all are eating this. He's like, this is my pizza. And he spit on the pizza, saying that like, like when you're a kid, no, this is mine. I'm licking it.
Right.
So like, he's like, he spit all over that pizza. And they're like, what? I don't know. That was crazy.
That's
insane. If so, oh man, that was crazy. I liked his interaction with Bird after the game.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. That was hilarious.
And you could tell those guys, them being the icons in the 80s, along with Magic, I would just love to see how they all interacted like that. That's why I like that. You know what I mean? Even though they were cussing at each other and stuff, it was just like, you could tell they had that respect towards one another, which also when Karl Malone came on the bus.
Yeah, I wrote
that.
That was awesome.
Talk about that.
That was awesome. Us three, we all have that same respect towards people around us, and just to see that guy got on the bus, that's amazing.
That was really impressive. I thought for you to go all the way outside and get on their bus, that's not just you backstage or back behind during a press junket or a press conference, but for you to go ahead and knowing that you had your heart ripped out, and you still get on the bus and shake their hands and congratulate them. That was big.
But I think it goes both ways. I think Jordan truly respected Malone and Stockton too. You know what I mean? Like when I think it was in 6 or 7 when he went to the after when he was still playing baseball and baseball was on the strike.
Right.
And like the first time he went to Chicago Stadium to go see people is he wanted to go see Malone and Stockton. Right? Am I correct on that?
I thought he said, I think so. He said he went to a practice or something. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
But yeah, you're right. You're right, Dan. He probably did. And those guys being on a dream team and all that stuff together, I'm sure, they got along.
Hey, speaking of the Jazz, that wasn't a push off.
No, I agree.
Wasn't.
No, I agree. his momentum was going that direction. I totally
his
agree.
Momentum was going that way.
Yeah.
But
That's all I got. Other than the last thing I wrote down, MJ's Stogie game is on point, man. Like that dude, I've always liked him, but that makes me like him even more. You know what I mean?
He was all over those, man, no doubt. My last ones were Phil Jackson. I have more respect for Phil Jackson after watching this than I did before, because I was always like, Phil, had the best talent, and he did, and I'm not denying that, but Phil Jackson probably wasn't the coach that was going to take a 60 or a 50 win team and get them to the finals. I mean, there are certain coaches I think that they can do that, and I'm not sure Phil's a great X's and O's guy, but he just knows the right buttons to push, and he knows how to treat people. Yeah. I mean, and it's like, it reminded me of like as a teacher where, you kind of can treat this kid this way and this guy this way. And, what's fair it's not always equal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, I treat these guys the way they need to be treated. And I mean, I just think he was like, he's a master of that. And that whole writing down the thing and sticking it in the coffee can and burning it at the end. I mean, it was just, there was a lot of things like that stood out to me. And I thought Phil's better than I thought he ever was, even though I know he's one of the greatest. He truly did. He understood people, and he got the greatest to join. He's gotten some of the greatest to come aboard and join him. And
in Symphony.
Right.
Symphony,
Yeah.
Because handling those egos is one thing, but then getting them to buy in and do it as beautifully as it was done.
Exactly.
I did laugh at the end. Remember when they get back to the room and Jordan's playing the piano and somebody asked him a question about next year and he's like, remember that Zen, living the now stuff.
That's right. Yeah. But my final thing is I don't know about Scotty. I went from, I always thought Pippen was a rider who, if he was on other teams, he wouldn't have been as great, to, Scottie Pippen was a really good player. And then I went to, I don't know if he's top 50 guy, even though they said he's top 50 guy, to, Scotty was versatile. He did things, blah, blah. I don't know about the Pippen legacy, because I forgot about his back hurting in that game and basically Jordan carrying them. I mean, because Scotty, again, I mean, he was there, but he couldn't do anything. I mean, you could see he was locked up, but I don't know. He's one of those guys that I'm not sure what I really feel about Pitt.
I would completely agree with you on that, Keith. And it's funny because I kind of had the same emotions through all of the episodes. I went from, well, could Jordan win any of those championships, right, minus Scotty, to now, where Mason said last time, the last three, he views Rodman as more important than Scotty.
Yeah. And I mean, and I don't know. Mason threw out numbers last time. It was like, he averaged 16 a game. Well, yeah, he averaged 16 a game, but dude, when your team's only scoring 90 points, 16 a game it's a whole lot different than 16 a game today compared to 16 a game now. Because I thought the exact same thing. But then I was like, you start looking at those scores, and somebody even mentioned it, and they were like, look at these scores. It was like 90 something at 80, or 85
overtime,
Yeah. And I mean, they held the Jazz at one game to 54 points, which
that's
amazing.
I didn't remember that either.
I didn't either. Now that was one I did not remember, but I'm just like, that's 16 and a half points a game, which that's his average. So you figure there had to be some years he was probably closer to 20, 20 a game. You scoring 20 points a game and your team's getting 80 some points. You're you start looking at percentages there and you're like, dude, you're scoring a quarter of the team's points.
Yeah.
You're pretty good.
And then when Jordan's scoring 30,
right,
pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, we're not talking, you can't just throw out, that's where numbers can sometimes be deceiving, because that 16 and a half, it's a whole lot different in the 1990s than it is today, So
that's a good point.
I don't know. But yeah, Scotty's the one. He's the guy I'm not sure of. I don't know. So, all right, let's stop here and then we'll do our last bit. Want to make sure we get this in. All right.